It's the 16th day of December 2022. We have a guest in the studio who is from the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya. As we welcome him.
Right. This is the last proverb from the country of Equatorial Guinea.
Okay.
Not Guinea, not Guinea-Bissau, not Papua New Guinea. Equatorial
Guinea.
Thank you very much. Wherever a man goes to dwell, his character goes with him.
Wherever a man goes to dwell, his character goes with him. All right.
It's not something you leave behind.
Yeah.
Say, look, today I'm not really up to it. I left my character at home.
It's just me. Today's just me.
I came alone. Came under the company.
Yes.
Kevin Mutiso is the chairman of the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning. How have you been?
You can still say Asante. Very nice. Very nice.
Very nice. Please and thank you. Such things. It's okay.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Welcome
for
to the
having
hot
me.
seat again. We had you. The last time we had you was what? Last year, but one.
No, it was, I think it was around a year and a half. About a year and a half ago, we're discussing the regulations that were coming and everyone was nervous.
Yes.
Including me.
The regulations have now been in effect since December 2021, right?
So
2020.
the way we ended up having the regulations is that we got a 6-month window to comply. So March 17th was date 1. September 17th was the final cutoff date. And now we're waiting for our licenses.
So, who is we?
We is the digital credit providers. Her rumor has it that about 400 applicants submitted for the license. And according to the CBK in September, 288 companies applied for the license. So that's
288 companies that applied for the license.
Yes.
How many, are those all your members?
No, we represent the sort of the biggest lenders in the game. So we have about 35 members now. We lend about 10 billion shillings a month as a membership to about, and it's grown since I was last year, to about 6 to 8 million customers every month.
10 billion shillings a month.
Yes.
Like every new month, there's a 10 billion shilling that you lent out to customers.
Yes.
6 to 8, how many?
6 to 8 million borrowers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Last time I was here was 4 to 6.
That is huge.
Yeah.
So then there was a call for regulation. So
Yes.
you can be under the ambit of a regulator.
Yes.
And in this case, the Central Bank of Kenya.
Yes.
Now, if you represent 35 and you're saying like 200 had applied, explain to me this business. Because have you heard of 200 digital lenders?
Where are they?
200.
There are 200 of them.
Kwanza
Hold
now
on.
that
Digital lenders now, what are we talking about? Folks that you
Yes.
get onto an app and you say, okay, like, I fill in the thing and then you borrow 1,000 shillings, or digital meaning that you apply online with your documents. What are we talking about here
or
exactly?
even a bank that has a digital app.
Thank you very much.
No.
What are we talking about exactly?
So according to the central bank, a digital lender, what they're calling now a digital credit provider, is anyone who uses a digital piece in the whole loan giving process. So if you have a manual process for KYC and scoring, but you disburse by M-Pesa, you're still considered a DCP.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
These acronyms,
So
as
that
nice as they sound.
Digital credit provider.
Thank you.
DCP.
we just keep writing them.
Yeah.
So DCP, DLLMM, CBK,
KYP.
KYP, KYC.
Oh, sorry.
KYC.
See?
Know your
KYC.
customer.
KYC.
Okay, so because when we hear digital lender, the obvious thing that comes to mind is that it's an app on your phone, and then that's how you're getting the little amounts here and there. So that's why it boggled my mind. If we're talking about 10 billion, is it actually possible to have your, not to name them, but have your little app, whatever? So we're actually saying, even if it's somebody who's seated in an office somewhere, so long as they then display disburse the loan to whomever
Using a digital
using
means.
digital means, that is considered a digital lender.
Yes.
So then it makes sense that there could be 200, Eric.
This means also the commercial banks that have digital apps.
They are licensed under the Banking Act, so they are exempted from being a digital credit provider.
Then I still don't see the 200 though.
No, me, I see even more. If I go by Ndu's definition of a digital lender, if I have money in my M-Pesa and I lend you, I've become a digital lender.
Oh, Lord in heaven.
Well, if you do it under
Under
a
the
company,
Under a company.
yes.
Okay. So with all this business that your members have been doing, and this is just the members that are under the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya, this is some huge business. Where do you get the money from to lend?
So we get private capital. So we go to capital markets, we raise money, we go to banks, they give us loans. We go to what is known as a wholesale lender. You know, sometimes if you have a retail shop, you buy milk from a wholesaler, then you retail it. So money has the same sort of supply chain or value chain. The wholesale lenders who give you blocks amount of capital, then we retail it out.
Give us examples of wholesale lenders.
People like Lendable. These are companies that, have actually created a business model where they analyze lending models and give money to these lending companies. There's another one called Finclusion. There's another one called Safi Ventures.
So they have a lot of money,
Yes.
and then they give you as now the outlets.
Yes.
And you on lend to customers.
Yes.
You pay them back at their own interest.
Yes.
We pay you at an interest.
Yes.
Brings in the conversation sharks, predators, predatory lenders, that you're actually just scamming us of all the money that we have made by giving us loans and then charging us 700% per annum. Respond to that. I'm sure you've had this very many times.
So what I like saying is that there's two parts of the market. There are those of us called mission-driven fintechs, where our objective is to solve a financial inclusion problem. You know, now Kenya is one of the most financially included markets, but 10 years ago, majority of adults did not have access to credit at all. Now, the other side of the market are these bad actors, and that's why we actually formed the association, because we needed to differentiate ourselves because of their bad behavior. I'm sure you remember the horror stories of debt collection in Kenya.
Yep.
I'm hoping the Kenyans have now realized that noise has come down, and we can commend, the central bank for their good work and the data commissioner's office for the work they've done. But that's the way the market is. You've got the Shylocks, who are not us, and then you've got us mission-driven fintechs who want to solve for financial inclusion. Yeah.
So the Shylocks are the ones that are charging those exorbitant fees.
Yes.
You don't.
No, we don't.
What's the average kind of interest rate among your members?
I think now we're maybe at 10% a month, between 7.5 and 10% per month. And I know you want to say that's exorbitant, but if you think about the trading cycle of an informal sector entrepreneur,
Right.
the margin that they make is more than able to cover this financing. And then I always try and use the analogy of a hotel and a rental unit. If you have a house in Karen that is 300,000 a month, and you have a hotel room that's charging $100 a month, if you stay 30 days in that hotel room, which is the size of a little box, it equals the same. It's 300,000 a month.
Yeah.
So let's not compare a tenured loan that's 1 year, 10 years with a 30-day loan or a 7-day loan or a 14-day loan, because those are two different things fundamentally.
I agree, but there's also the little detail about security and the risk factor that institutions such as the one you represent have,
Of course.
because you're exposed really.
No, we are. We are using data to determine if you're credit worthy, whereas the collateralized lenders are saying, if you have, I'll give you 80% of the value of your property. That's a very different equation.
That's what they say.
So Kevin, using data obviously to lend, but then are you using data also to make decisions on how to lend, who are then the people who are borrowing? Is it just anybody, run of the mill, somebody who needs, quick, out of trouble money, traders, or just anybody across board? Are you using data to determine now who then is coming to borrow?
Of course. So what we've become really good at is actually identifying what data sets, determine what you do. So I can look at data sets and say, this is a Mamamboga, this is a Boda Boda rider, this is a Kinyozi, this is a Kibanda, So most of our customers are those informal sector entrepreneurs who need working capital. They need it quickly. They need it efficiently. There's an amount they need. So, it's not the 100,000s or 2 millions that people are looking for. They just need 10,000 here, 15,000 there, sometimes even just 1,000. Yeah. So that's who we cater for. Now, even last time you asked me this question, do some people fall through the cracks? Of course, there's some data sets you can't tell the difference between Boda rider who bets and a student who also bets and receives an allowance from their parents, because the ability to repay, the cash flows look similar in some instances. So some people who shouldn't get loans fall through the cracks. And that's part of the business, part for the course, as they say.
Who are the people who shouldn't get loans?
The biggest demographic that shouldn't get loans are people who cannot repay them, right? So it's those who will be at risk and a serious financial risk if you give them a loan and take them further into, indebtedness. So the term is over-indebtedness. So that's who should not get loans.
And how can you tell?
Well, the way we should tell is by using the credit information sharing framework known as the Credit Reference Bureau. And the idea, last time I was here, I was telling you guys that it's actually not real time. Today it is. So today, all lenders are sharing data into the Bureau, both positive and negative. And the idea is that we as lenders should be able to see that Eric has a loan with so-and-so, and therefore if I give him this 10,000 shillings, he'll now have exposure of 20,000 shillings. And I have to ask myself, can Eric pay back the 20,000 shillings? If the answer is yes, I'll give him the 10,000. If the answer is no, I don't give him.
Okay.
If you look at that demographic of the people that you lend, like you've said, it's people who are coming and it's a short cycle. People who are coming and they basically need cash to operate a business.
Working capital.
It's like working capital for very many people in their businesses.
Fuel.
Whether you've said it's Mamamboga, it's the fuel for their business. Why have these people flocked to your businesses? Why have they found you to be the place to go to?
Because we solve a much needed problem. The existing, I call them the incumbents. The incumbents had completely neglected these demographics. They make so much more money from lending to government and lending to large institutions that have, large collateral and, buildings and houses and, all these assets. And so they're completely ignored by this demographic. So what we did is we figured out, how do we use the technology available to us? And Kenya is a very unique place, by the way, because digital lending could only happen in a place like Kenya, where you have M-Pesa, which allows you to disburse. You have a credit bureau that is quite modern. We're I keep saying this everywhere I go. We're number 1 in Africa, number 4 in the world.
Number 1 in what?
Credit information sharing framework. Right? Because it's so advanced, even compared to modern economies. We're able to access it in a very modern way. Kenya also has a data privacy law. So there's a way we must handle customer data. And then, of course, there's the proliferation of smartphones because of what the telcos have done. So we're able to reach the customer in a very cheap and effective way. And we're able to then, do what is needed to determine if you can get a loan or not.
So everything else was aligned, but the banks. That's it.
Basically.
Everything else was aligned.
However, the largest
People
digital
had
lenders
ideas.
are banks too.
All right.
So Fuliza, I told you we lend 10 billion a month. Fuliza does $1 billion a day.
One.
1 billion a day, right? Mshwari does about 25 billion a month. So the largest digital lenders are actually
the commercial banks.
Commercial banks, yes.
Right.
The difference is they have they don't have niche products; they have mass market products. We have now niche products. So you'll find a lender, one of like I lend to Boda Boda, somebody else lends to Mamamboga, somebody else lends to Kinyozi. So we are the niche lenders.
Every organization has its own niche, for example.
Yes.
What's yours?
Boda Bodas. It's called Oye.
Your company is called Oye.
Yes.
O-Y-E.
YE.
Like that.
Yeah.
Oye.
In fact, that's actually how we found the name.
Uh-huh.
We were one of our team members was riding a Boda Boda, and so, somebody called out to him and said, "Oh yeah,
Hey, that's it.
That's a nice name."
I say,
Oi, I say, and that's it. And that's how you now
And
learn
then
to
you design now a logo and the things. And now when I meet the Boda Boda chairman, I start by saying Boda Boda, oh yeah.
Nice. Nice. Then the Hustler Fund then comes in. The government says financial inclusion, a very large chunk of entrepreneurs in the country are unable to access finance through the formal means, that's the commercial banks. And then when they come to you, they find it's very expensive to repay. And the government says, all right, let's come up with a product in a way that we can help spur this engine with an 8% interest rate. It's 8% per what?
Per annum.
Per annum. Yours is 10% per
month.
30 days, which makes it what per annum? Okay, let's not go there.
Remember, it's bedroom and,
It's bedroom
it's a rental house and hotel room. Those are two different things. The box is still 300K a month.
Okay. Okay. With the introduction of the Hustler Fund, where does that position your businesses then?
So here's the interesting thing. I think, and we think as an industry, that the Hustler Fund is actually quite transformative, not just for the industry, but for Kenyans in general. The last time I was here, I spoke about a risk called fast loss risk, which is actually the most expensive risk because we don't know if Ndu repays loans. So we as private capital lenders now have to take a risk on Ndu and see, here's 500 shillings or here's 1,000 shillings and hope and pray that she pays us back. What the Hustler Fund is solving for our industry is that it's solving for that first loss, right? We can now learn that the customer actually can borrow and repay, right? The second thing I like about the Hustler Fund is that, and even when I was the first thing I said when I was here last, I was watching the interview the other day, is digital lending is the greatest invention ever. Because we figured out how to take small dollar amounts to the people in a very cost-effective and efficient way. And so what the Hustler Fund has done, it has validated that thinking and has now figured out a way to send money to the demographic. And the demographic that matters here is the entrepreneur, the informal sector entrepreneur, and give them working capital in a very cheap way. So I took my Hustler Fund loan the other day. So I got 900 shillings. That was my limit. And
This thing is discriminatory. Ulipewa 900.
Yeah.
what did you get?
Kama 200 hata sijui.
Minimum is 500.
Nilipata 500.
No, they know Eric better than you.
They could see my intention.
They said 200 is good for this person. Let him repay before he considers the 5.
And I got into my M-Pesa 855 shillings. Right? So if you think about that, I got a limit of 900, I got 855. I then was not forced, but I was meant to pay it back, and I paid 948 cents. Now, think about it from the customer point of view. Imagine I'm a Mama Mboga or a Boda rider. To me, I'm still paying 7-point-something% because I got 855, I still had to pay 900 shillings. The difference is that the interest that typically goes to my business is now going to your savings account, right? So that's the difference in the experience. Anyway, I was talking about why I like it. It takes money direct to the informal sector entrepreneur and helps them build a savings plan. It isn't a novel idea. This has been done across the world. In the US, they have the Small Business Administration. It was founded in 1953, and it has grown to the point that it was the first loan. It gave the first loans to the two largest businesses in the world today, Apple and Tesla. Right? And these were not the huge, big amounts of money that people imagine. They were literally, Steve Jobs was still in the garage with Steve Wozniak, right? And they got a couple $1,000s just to test their business model. And now they are what they are today because of that Small Business Administration. And so that's the power
Of the Hustler
the
Fund.
Hustler Fund, the potential of the Hustler Fund.
All right, we'll talk more about it. Let's take a break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Our guest this morning, Kevin Mutiso. He's the chairman of the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya. We are talking about the impact of the Hustler Fund on digital lenders. Kevin, you're telling us the good things that you like about this fund. One thing that you said, it does that job for you, the first loss risk. So basically, you want that person to first go to Hustler Fund, get some money, and then if the person has actually appeared,
Proven themselves as willing to repay.
and you will see it on the CRB portal,
Yes.
that this person has actually borrowed from Hustler Fund, has repaid, then it raises their score with you.
Yes.
Okay. What else is good about the Hustler Fund?
Well, it's covering another big gap. So the other interesting insight that I can share is that the gap is about 200 billion shillings.
Gap of what?
The total market size, rather, is 200 billion shillings into the informal sector entrepreneurs. Hustler Fund, so what I said is, Fuliza is doing about 30B. Mshwari is doing about 25B. We are doing about 10. And now Hustler Fund, we've been told to be 50. So if you do that, we're just slightly over 100. So 100B. So there's still about 95 to go.
Sorry, Kevin, when you say to go, essentially we're saying 95 billion shillings is what is needed
That's the demand.
by the sector to be able to run in terms of funding needs.
200 billion shillings is what is needed by the entrepreneur at the ground.
How do you know this? Is this by the demands that are coming? Or how do you then know that this is what the weight is when it comes to funding?
No, this was a report that was done in 2018, I think, by Equity Bank, if I'm not wrong. But you can see the demand when you just walk around Nairobi, for example. What does a business need? It needs fuel. It needs that capital to do that thing, to make that margin.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm a Boda rider and I need fuel, I'd rather put 300 shillings so that I can go farther and maybe even go into deeper neighborhoods where there's likely more business.
Yes.
Right? That's what that capital does. That's why that need is there. And if you look at the number of informal sector entrepreneurs we have in this country, I think there are about 6 million, according to FSD report 2019. We're a long way off to giving them what they need. In fact, the biggest complaint from customers is we're still not giving them enough. They need more.
They need more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I like the Hustler Fund because it's plugging.
So there's still more space even for more to
Yes, of course.
get into the market.
Of course.
Now, when you like something as much as you do the Hustler Fund, there must be something you don't like about it. It can't be that you just like.
And it's not yours.
It's not mine.
Somebody else's. We have appreciated the 900 bob that you got. Actually, 850.
855.
Yes, exactly. But again, what do you consider to be things that the originators and the operationalization experts of the Hustler Fund can improve on?
Well, I don't even know if the word is improve. I worry that the idea of lending has been misunderstood as thinking as that it's only about the disbursement. The the business of lending is collections, right? So the question I wonder to myself is that if there are people falling late, the FAQ say that they'll send SMS, notifications and reminders. But, somebody who's been in the game 17 years, that you need a call center to call certain customers and say, hey, CT, you owe us 500 shillings. When should we expect it, right? And I wonder who in government is going to do that. Do they have a call center? Are they working with third parties? If they're working with third parties, who are they?
What are they paying them?
Yeah. The other thing is, I mentioned the Small Business Administration. There's another one called SEFA in South Africa, which is very similar to the Hustler Fund. And what those two institutions did well is they used intermediaries to deploy the funds into the market, because they figured that the intermediaries know what they're doing, right? So, why reinvent the wheel? Find partners that know exactly what they're doing, that know their customers, that know, in fact, like I said just now, I know that my customers are not getting enough, right? And I know why. Yeah, come and ask me, and I can help you. And I think the fact that the regulations allow for the intermediaries is good, but we want now to see that being enacted, because we know our customers and we have niche markets, so we can genuinely solve and make this transformative fund even be more transformative.
The saving aspect. Let's just go to your 900 shillings that you borrowed. Sorry, 855.
855.
All right.
No, he borrowed 900.
I borrowed 900.
You got 855.
I got
Yeah.
855
So where
and
did
repaid 948 cents.
948. Okay, 900 shillings and 48 cents,
Yeah.
right? The 45 shillings. Was that a processing fee, service fee, something? What was that 45 shillings that you didn't get?
So it's a savings. And
Okay,
and I was told 30% is short term,
Yes.
70% is long term
Okay.
pension.
All right.
Yes.
That's savings. The 45 shillings has gone into savings.
Yes.
Okay. Where is it?
So the long-term savings has gone to the Kenya National Entrepreneurs Trust.
There's a trust that exists.
It has been recently formed through, I forget the Gazette notice, but it was recently formed.
Yeah.
What hasn't been done is the directors and secretariat haven't
And
been.
trustees.
And trustees.
Kenya National Entrepreneurs Trust.
KNEST. KNEST or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then.
Licensed by the
Now, that I do not know.
Okay.
Retirement Benefits Authority.
My
That's what
my
it
questions
should
are
be.
building
That's
up to
who should
something.
license it, by
Okay.
the way.
My questions are building up to something here. And so now maybe that would help to shape this. So can you at any time, the way CT likes to go and check his bank and see that the money is there, can you at any time dial a number and say, I want to see my savings. I want to see all my 45 shillings in savings. I want to see it somewhere. Can you do that as of today?
I can't.
You cannot. All right. Would you think that that would be something that you ought to be able to do as savings build up? Part of it is pension, this 45 shillings is going to help a rainy day when you're 70 odd years old, right? Should you be able to see it somewhere? Dial *576# and find my savings sitting somewhere on some cloud.
In fact, that's what I mean, right? The rollout, though impressive in terms of the numbers, I feel could have been a little bit more, and that's why the term intermediaries, I'm using the term intermediaries, could have helped them roll it out in a more efficient way, in a way, because you're right. Let me give you a statistic. The average digital borrower on our platforms takes 20 loans a year. If I take 900 shillings 20 times, my savings should be about 15 times 20, which is 300 shillings. So if instead of getting the 900 next time, maybe I would want to use the 300 and take 600. I need to know how to do that. I really need to know how to do that, because then the savings is not effective to me. The other thing we could have helped them do is financial literacy. What is it that Kenyans don't understand the most is they don't understand. Well, they understand money, but they don't understand how to play or how to use it to their advantage, and they don't understand the benefits of certain things. So if, for example, we create that habit and enforce the habit of repaying on time, right? Digital loans, do not be surprised if that cascades into paying on time for rent and paying on time for other things, which, by the way, is a big problem in this market because we're such a low trust society. We could have helped them sort of frame those narratives and talk to the customer in a way that they understand, because we understand our customers.
So, Kevin, by saying intermediary, blah, blah, you're basically saying they should have given the fund to you to disburse, to on-lend.
No, they should have given it association and the people. Remember these niche markets they speak of?
Yes.
Because the hustler is in all these niches.
You already understand.
Yes. So if money was given to
us, we would not be lending 900. I'd be lending 20,000.
Ah.
Right?
Because you know the need.
Because I know the need. I know the customer. Right? I know the customer needs a smartphone. I have already created the whole product. How do I get a smartphone? You know, we keep talking about this digital superhighway. How do we get people to access and build value on these digital superhighways? They need smartphones, right? There are companies that have figured how to do that.
Do you think it would, because they have talked about it before, they've talked about, so we have started with the personal loans, then there's going to be the SME loan, the group's loans, the Chama loans and all, which they also say, as an institution, according to the regulations that have been gazetted by the National Treasury for the Financial Inclusion Fund, even institutions can actually access the money. They can work with institutions such as Chamas and SACCOs, and is that where then you would fall in? Where you go to the Hustler Fund and get money and on-lend then to your customers?
We would hope so. The fintech industry in Kenya is the most innovative technology sector in Kenya, whether we like to admit it or not. The challenge is that we've been branded with this negative light of digital Shylocks,
Yes.
right? And so what I'd urge, to your point, government, is remember you've got talent sitting in country. These are Kenyans, it's not foreigners. Well, some are, but you've got talent sitting in country, you've got technology sitting in country that can help you do these things very effectively. So we would hope that we fall there. Unfortunately, it feels like we're being, because we have this bad tag, we're not being considered as being the innovative sector that we are, and which I think is going to be a huge loss even to GOK.
Okay. Now, you said something I think is important because you understand the lender. I think
borrower.
Understand the borrower. You as a lender understand the borrower, right? Previously, it was that, look, people need money, you either give them or you don't, or you move on. But now, getting into a process of really understanding. So now we have the Hustler Fund, which is, is giving Kevin 900 shillings, it's giving Eric 500 shillings.
I'm repaying that money just now to see if I'm going to catch up with Kevin.
A higher limit, do tell. So, are you essentially saying that the Hustler Fund, good as it is, because I don't think anybody has disputed that it's a good idea to be able to help folks, because, access to credit is probably one of the biggest impediments to flourishing business in this country, right? That maybe it would have gone a step further if there was understanding of this borrower at whatever level, because the person who is trying to replenish his or her grocery shop is different from the person who needs to keep their motorbike running, is different from the person who needs to buy toner for their photocopying shop. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you think that we could see the fund being more effective if it took into consideration the different cadres of borrowers across board?
Of course. In fact, let's zoom out, right? If you are in charge of Kenya, in the sense of you're in charge of the people and economics of the people, what is it that we know? GDP per capita is $2,000, which is about 200 shillings per annum per citizen, right? That means the average citizen makes about 14,000 shillings a month. Because of that, we're now 56 million Kenyans. Because of that, we're actually a very poor country and a very small market as a result of how poor we are, for lack of a better word. The objective should be to improve that GDP per capita to get closer to $10,000, which is about $1 million, so that the average Kenyan is earning about 90,000 a month. The way to do that is by, as I said earlier, taking money to the people who need it in the quickest and most effective way. So to your point, right, if they want it to be effective and if the goal is to build, to improve that GDP per capita so that the economy has cash, running through it and circulating and trade is happening, they have to work with people like us, right? They have to figure out the customer. They have to know that you can give a mamamboga 20,000, you can give a boda boda 10. You can, they're market traders. Women market traders. I sit on an advisory board where we are studying and researching market traders. The difference in volume, from a market trader who sits in the center of a town compared to that market trader at the border is so diverse. It actually blew my mind. The border, the one at the border is doing maybe 2,000-3,000 shillings a day. The market trader is doing 10,000, 15,000 shillings a day. On paper, they are the same person.
They're market traders.
They're market traders, right? If our objective is to move GDP per capita to the point where we can call ourselves a real economy, the objective should be to understand the customer very well. Let me give you another interesting thing. Our total budget as a country is 3.3 trillion shillings. If you divide 3.3 trillion by 60 million Kenyans, that's about $500 per Kenyan per year from government. So the allocation to Eric from government to provide roads, healthcare, education, blah, 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 is 50,000, 60,000 shillings per year, right? We need to improve that number. So there's two sides to this equation. Government needs more tax revenue. The only way they're going to do that is if businesses make more money.
Yeah.
And people need more money so that they can live these good quality lives, right? And the only way they can do that is by having these types of innovative products, but not by stopping. They need to go the full hog. I don't know if I've said something too crazy.
No, you've said something actually that makes a lot of sense. That's a pin drop, a coin drop moment. Like, Allah? Like, really? I've repaid the Hustler Fund loan.
And?
I paid back 500 shillings and 32 cents.
Okay, and?
And they told me, congratulations, the certificate is on the way.
Certificate for what?
Done. For paying back your loan.
paying back the loan in good time. And then I asked them, so what's my limit? 500 bob.
No. But they're right. It's never immediate. When you think the people who crafted this thing don't know the people who are going to try and see.
I have borrowed another 500 immediately.
That's what I did. In fact, my goal is I want to be the person.
Don't say it on national.
No, I want to say it so that I have a competition. I want to have the highest savings amount by the end of next year in my because it's cheap money.
Every time you take a loan,
25
saving. Every time you take a loan,
5%.
savings.
Yeah.
Savings. Yeah, makes sense.
I want to see who will be number one next year. I hope it's me.
But you know something? What Kevin is doing is actually a good thing. Because, one, you are actually not only testing the system, but you are proving the point. And you will prove it as you keep borrowing and paying, that not only does this particular system work, but it can benefit. Now, the question is, when it comes to the person for whom it's intended, because it wasn't intended for you, Kevin, or you, Eric.
I'm a Kenyan.
Yeah, you're not a hustler.
I am.
Of course you're not. The two of you are not hustlers.
What do you mean?
I have decided. It's my opinion.
Okay.
So, how then does this money translate into actually changing the lives of the so-called hustler? How? Because it's supposed to be what? Stimulus. It's supposed to be an incentive. It's supposed to be whatever it is that it's supposed to be. End result should be the life of this person via the business that they're conducting. And you said it well, needs to be on upward trajectory.
Right.
How is the 900 bob and your 500 bob going to bring about that reality?
Or do you borrow and you just work to pay it back and then that's it? You just get back. And maybe just, another part would be, what are the trends that we've seen? That people are borrowing and then you work to pay back what you've borrowed. Your life or your livelihood doesn't get any better per se. You're not accelerating your business, you're feeding, and then you start the next day at the same point.
You see, the scheme, the thinking, I can't fault it, but I have to ask the question.
Of course.
There is an end goal. How?
So the end goal first should be the sustainability of the fund, which is another fact I should have mentioned this earlier, something I'm worried about. Because here's how lending works. I lend out $1 million. I expect 5% of the customers won't pay me, so I expect 50,000 won't come back. So I'll get 950,000 in principal, and if I charge 10% per cycle, it means I'll make 90,000 from the 95,000 from the 950,000 I get back, and that's how I make the extra profit. So 50 is covered, and then I have a 45,000 shilling profit.
Balance.
Balance. Let's call it balance. Now, with the way the fund is currently structured, you've just paid 32 cents. Right? How are we going? So every cycle, if 5% don't pay, right, we're always going to be negative, net negative in terms of total pool of funds.
With only a 5% default rate.
Yes.
5 only.
Only 5.
Okay.
You're always going to be net negative. So every cycle after that, right, is going to make the pool smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So the question is it a race to zero? Right? So is it a grant or is it a loan? Which is actually one of the biggest issues. I don't know why I forgot to mention that. It's one of the biggest concerns I have, because is this a sustainable model?
So you're saying the interest is too low?
Of course. I think the interest is too low. The point of interest is to cover expenses. Right? One of the biggest expenses in lending is default. Right? So you need to be able to recover whatever has been defaulted and make a little bit to cover expenses and maybe a profit. Now, Hustler Fund doesn't need to make a profit because it's a government.
So there's a reason why the interest is low. It doesn't need to make a profit, because then you need to ask yourself, what's the intent of it from the very beginning? It's not private business that goes in commercially and say, look, we need to make something on this shilling.
Okay.
So this is government saying, look, from the very beginning, let's make life a little bit easier for Kenyans, right?
Okay.
So the intent is not commercial, but while they're at it, let's make a little bit something off the top, right?
Not make a little bit. We need to make the fund sustainable. The pooled funds, at the end of the period, you need to have 1 million shillings at the very least.
Yes.
If you started with 1 million, end at 1 million.
End at 1 million at the very least.
At the very least. Don't end at 100,000.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the current model and the interest amounts that the Hustler Fund then is using is not sustainable in terms of what they're going to get back after the initial period.
That's what I'm saying. Because I predict at least, that every lending model minimum default expected, particularly in a market like ours, is 5%. So if you've lent out 1 million, you expect 50,000 to disappear, right? You need to be able to recover that 50,000 from the balance, right? And if you're paying 32 cents and I'm paying 48 cents, right? I just don't see how.
Maybe government doesn't want that.
It's prorated. Did you pay after 14 days?
No, I paid in 14 days, yeah.
Maybe government actually wants a situation whereby the end user, who is now the hustler per se, is not, strained.
But then that
as
means
as other entities, whereby you end up paying interest for the rest of your life.
So if we start at 1 million, by the time as a hustler I'm getting my 10th loan, it means I will not get an 11th loan because there's money.
Nothing left.
That's my point.
I get your point.
Right? So that's to answer your question. What is the end goal? The end goal here is to make a fund that puts money in a cost-effective way to the bottom of the pyramid and makes it gets sustainable.
And for it to do that, it must be sustainable.
It must be sustainable.
Yes.
And it has to get to the point where, like in the US, the Small Business Administration Fund, right, which is very similar, by the way, in design to Hustler. It's just the difference then in 1953 was they were using forms, right? You're now investing in the future industries of your economy where the first grants or loan given to Apple or Tesla came from a similar structure in the US. Right, sustainability is key. That fund still exists today. Their budget is $700 million per annum. So imagine, Apple has
with no more appropriation from the government.
Yeah,
it's just the rotating fund now. It's 700 million USD.
Yes.
Anyway, Kevin, thank you very much for joining us again, and thank you for all the new information you've given us. Only that Andrew Franklin is saying, where did you get your 60 million Kenyans from? Last census just a couple of days ago were 49 million.
No,
He
the
said-
total
he
right
said
now is
56.
56.5 million.
56.
I used 60 million to round off so that I could calculate.
For better calculation.
Yeah, but Kenyans basically, what I was saying is, the budget gives you, your allocated is about $500 to $600 per annum,
Per annum.
which is pretty low if you ask me.
Kevin Mutiso is the chairman of the Digital Financial Services Association of Kenya.